You guys bear with me and please help me out any way you can. So I don't want it to be too quiet. And we're in Joshua chapter 10. It's a good chapter. It's kind of self-explanatory, a lot of it, but there's some good points in there.
You got some names in it, it's kind of hard to pronounce.
Yeah, it is. Seems like about 90% of them are, for me anyway, hard to say. So I'll start reading, and then I may ask you guys if you want to read some. Joshua chapter 10. Is everybody there? Now it came to pass when Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, had heard how Joshua had taken Ai and had utterly destroyed it, as he had done to Jericho and her king, so he had done to Ai and her king, and all the inhabitants of Gibeon had made peace with Israel, and were among them. That they feared greatly, because Gibeon was a great city, and one of the royal cities, and because it was greater than Ai, and all the men thereof were mighty. How was Gibeon city a part of the Israelites now? Anybody remember that?
Didn't he go and tell them that he traveled a mile up again, and he was not that far away, that he made it look like he had been a long ways away?
Right. He tricked Joshua into making a covenant with him. I think they were Hivites is what they were.
Hivites,
In Gibeon. So he had tricked Joshua. He had took and he had heard that the Israelites, how they were destroying the villages and stuff. So he was only, I think, 3 days journey, maybe from Joshua at the time. So they took and to make it look like they had been traveling for days and days and days, they brought old molded bread. They brought wine that was in old bottles. Their clothes were old, dusty clothes. So he tricked Joshua into making the covenant. In return, after Joshua heard that this is what he done, instead of slaying them, Joshua said, okay, I'll respect the covenant I made, but you're going to be woodcutters and wood carriers from now on. So he made them slaves to them. And that way he protected them. And later on you'll see too a couple more things that we'll bring out on this. So that was the main reason. Said in 3 says, wherefore Adonizedek, king of Jerusalem, said unto Hoham, king of Hebron, and unto Puritan, king of Jarmuth, and unto Jochebed, queen of Lachish, and unto Deber, king of Eglon, come up unto me and help me, that we may smite Gibeon. For it hath made peace with Joshua and with the children of Israel. Therefore the 5 kings of the Amorites, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, the king of Eglon, gathered together, and went up, they and all their hosts, and encamped before Gibeon, and made war against it. So the king got scared. Why was he scared?
I was afraid that they're going to take their land and stuff too.
He was, and there's another reason too, because he felt like they had were disloyal to him. This one tribe that was not Israelite had went, to Joshua. He kind of drafted them in, and he felt like they were disloyal to him and all the people that lived in that country. So he got mad. So he was going to make them pay. And that's the main thing that I got out of that part of it. Somebody else, Charlie, you got anything?
No, yes, other, and numbers, it tells you all about them. Hittites and Amorites and all that, where they lived and everything.
Yeah, and I wish I would have a map. I think one of these days, I need to get one. I seen one somewhere one time and didn't, and I think it would make studying, especially this part of the Bible, so much easier if you had a big chart. Because going into next week's lesson, you'll see that this week's lesson, it's all the hill people and a few down along the river. All of that was destroyed. Next week, it's going to be kind of on the other side. Same thing. War again. But he just felt that, this king or the king, that this was a disloyal act of them. And they were just going to destroy him before they ever got a chance to get Israel in there to destroy them. Anybody else got anything on that so far? Now, if you need me to stop or anything and don't understand, because some of this is pretty, some of it's hard to understand.
Have you got your microphone on?
No, I don't even have one. Can't hear me?
Oh, well. Real good. I don't know whether anybody else can or not. I'm in trouble.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Like I said, I'm not Genie. I know I'm a little better looking than he is, but What are you laughing for?
Wait till you turn your microphone on, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, now to turn it on.
In Numbers, it tells you where the Amalekites dwelled in the land of the south, and the Hittites and the Jebusites and the Amorites dwelt in the mountains, and the Canaanites dwelt in the sea and by the coast of Jordan, were the Canaanites.
Okay, can you hear me better? Or? All right. Okay, verse 6 said, "And the men of Gibeon sent unto Joshua to camp to Gilgal, saying, Slack not thy hand from thy servants. Come to us quickly and save us and help us. For all the kings of the Amorites that dwell in the mountains are gathered together against us. So Joshua ascended from Gilgal, he and all his people of war with him, and all the mighty men of valor." To me, this shows something of Joshua. Now, he could have said, well, they tricked me once. All these people are coming against them. Let them take care of themselves. And that's kind of what I get out of this. A lot of times, that's what we do. Somebody does something to Dave, does Dave wrong. And it's real easy if trouble comes up on that person, Dave just say, let's go let them deal with it now. I could help them, but I'm not. But Joshua didn't do that. He was a man of respect, and he had made a vow with these people, and he was going to hold up to it. So they all gathered together, and they headed there, and I think it was, from what I'm understanding, it's about a 24 or 25 mile trip at night. And from what I read on it, it was a rough trip. It wasn't just a road. It was up over mountains and valleys to get there. And they traveled all night long to do it.
When he speaks of the men of value, he's talking about the men fighting men
Right.
of age.
Yeah. Now, and maybe Charlie or Dave, maybe one of you guys know this, or Larry. I tried to look up to see if I could find out how many was actually in the Israelite army. Now, I did find some places they said there could have been as many as 600,000. But that's just, I think that's kind of a guess, because they figured when the Israelites crossed Jordan, they figured probably 2 million people, from what I'm understanding. And about 600,000 of them were men, able to have the age to fight, warriors. And the rest of them were women and kids. Does that sound right, Derek? And I tried to find out exactly how many they thought was in the armies of the 5 kings. I never did read anything on it that would tell me how many there were.
But they was all gathered together.
They was all gathered together. There was a lot of them. Verse 8 said, And the Lord said unto Joshua, Fear them not, for I have delivered them into thine hand. There shall not a man of them stand before thee. Joshua therefore came unto them suddenly, and went from Gilgal all night. And that's when he traveled all night to get there. So God told him he's going to protect them. Don't be afraid. And I guess I kind of keep going off a little bit, but I try to apply everything I read to my life a little bit. And that's what we have to do. A lot of times the Lord will say, or how many times have you guys heard people say, I'm just praying for the Lord to give me something to do. And then the Lord will give them something to do, and they'll say, well, that's not what I want. It happens a lot, Watching a movie the other day, it was a monk. It's kind of funny. He was traveling through the desert. He had to go 15 miles to find help. And he never said Lord, but he kept looking up, and he said, just help me to find some people. And he kept walking. He said, help me to find some people. So he comes over the mountain and look, and there's all kinds of people. And he looks down there at him. He said, but not these people. That's the way we are a lot of times. We'll ask the Lord to help us. Show me what you want me to do. And then when he does, you'll think, I don't want to do that. And that's when, that's what causes us a lot of trouble a lot of times. We don't follow his lead.
One thing we can get out of it too is when the Lord tells us, or makes us a promise in our life, he's going to stand by. He's not going to, just like he told them that he was going to stand by and they'd be victorious over them.
Yeah. He was not only will stand by him, as we'll read in a little bit, the Lord actually got in the battle. He was already in the battle, but you'll actually physically get in the battle. And that's the way with us. A lot of times, the Lord's already defeated everything in front of us. If the Lord tells you, Dave, I need you to go talk to so-and-so. And this guy's really real. The Lord's already made the path to do that. The Lord's already said it. All we have to do is follow what he tells us to do. And I think as a Christian, a lot of times that's where we fail. The same way when we pray a lot of times, we'll pray for something and we're defeated before we get up. Because as soon as we get up, we think, well, and it's human nature, I wonder if he's going to do that. But we just doubt it, We're not supposed to doubt. Said verse 8, And the Lord said unto Joshua, Fear them not, for I have delivered them to thy hand. There shall not a man stand before thee. Joshua therefore came unto them suddenly, and went all night. And the Lord discomfited them before Israel, and slew them with a great slaughter at Gibeon, and chased them along the way that goeth up to Bethron, and smote them to Azekah and Makkedah. What's discomfited mean? Anybody know?
I thought it said rooted it. What's that?
Yeah, I had to look it up because I had no clue.
Like to give them a round where to go.
Does anybody else? Idea? What I found, it's uncomfortable or embarrassing.
Kind of like we go into a panic.
Go into a panic, but the battle was the 5 kings, when Israelite come upon them, the 5 kings' men, they was defeated so bad, so fast, that they felt embarrassed. I mean, they looked bad, like they probably had never fought before. And that's when they took off. They just took off running.
No competition.
No competition whatsoever. God had already went there. God had already set it up. God had already told Joshua that he'd win the battle. And as we'll see in a little bit, not only this battle, but quite a few more. And said, it came to pass as they fled from before Israel and were in the going down to Betharon, that the Lord cast down great stones from heaven upon them as Keiah, and they died. And there was more which died of hailstones than they whom the children of Israel slew with the sword. That's why I say the Lord got right in this battle. You know, they started to run, and the Israelites were still killing them at the tail end, but God started throwing hailstones from heaven and killed more with that than they did with the sword. He was right in the battle, and He'll do that with us if we'll just do what He asks us to do. He's always going to be with us, no matter what. Even though sometimes we feel alone, He's still right there. He will not leave us, no matter what. We've all went through a lot of things in life, whether it be death of a family member and stuff, that's been tough. And I'm here to tell you, you know, I did it, and I asked the Lord, I questioned the Lord. I said, why? A lot. But then, you know, sometimes God shows you, you know, when I did this and was asking why. The Bible tells us that we see through a glass darkly. Sometimes He lightens that glass up a little bit. When I was going through that, the Lord kind of showed me, look what I set up. I did this, this, all through her life. And everything was to help. I mean, sometimes He'll show us a little bit of what we need to know. Sorry about going off in the left field there.
I think we all go in a stage sometimes where we ask, why this, why that, why me? And, you know, it's natural, I suppose.
It's human nature. I know a preacher that, good preacher, thought the world of him, got cancer. He said, you know, and he was talking one day and he said, I questioned God one time. I'm a preacher, why me? You know? But that's just human nature. We just got to take it. You know, whatever comes, we got to grow and just keep going. Because that's what we're, you know. This is just a getting ready place anyway. I mean, that's what our lives are. We're getting ready to go to heaven. That's what it is. Lord gives us a lot of pleasures here. He does. Dave and Susie just went to the beach. Now, I love the beach. That's a lot of fun. I love the mountains. It's a lot of fun. But you know, someday we're going to go to a place that the prettiest thing you've ever seen here is no comparison to that. And it said it hadn't even entered into the heart of man, the things that He has for it. So that's really, Derek, that's something to look forward to. something that I haven't even thought of. It's so beautiful, I can't even think of it. Verse 12 says, Then spake Joshua to the Lord in the day when the Lord delivered up the Amorites before the children of Israel. He said in the sight of Israel, Sun, stand thou still upon Gibeon, and thou moon in the valley in Avalon. So he didn't want to fight in the darkness. He wanted to finish the battle. He wanted to get it over with. So he asked the Lord to keep the sun up, and someplace I read said they figured it was up for at least 24 hours. So they fought. The Lord had to give them strength too. They traveled all night long through the mountains to get there. As soon as they got there, they started fighting. Now the sun's going to be up for 24 hours straight, and they're going to continue to fight. So the Lord's got to be touching each and every person to be able to. Physically, you can't do that. So we know the Lord was touching them. Said, and the sun stood still, and the moon stayed, until the people had avenged themselves upon their enemies. Is not this written in the book of Jasher? And I think that is the book of Jasher, I believe, is like a songbook of the Israelites, songs and poems, from what I could hear, or what I could find out on it. So the sun stood still in the midst of heaven, and hastened not to go down about a whole day. And there was no day like that before it or after it. And the Lord hearkened unto the voice of a man, for the Lord fought for Israel. Verse 15, And Joshua returned and all Israel unto him unto the camp to Gilgal. Why Gilgal, Charlie? Let me just ask that. To me, Gilgal kind of was their place of worship. Seemed like they always went back to Gilgal. They got strength there. And I may be wrong, but that's what I take out of it. Because they continually went back to Gilgal. Said, but these 5 kings fled and hid themselves in a cave at Makkedah. And it was told Joshua, saying, the 5 kings are found hid in a cave at Makkedah. And Joshua said, roll great stones upon the mouth of the cave, and set men by it for to keep them. And stay ye not, pursue after your enemies, and smite the hindmost of them. Suffer them not to enter into the cities, for the Lord your God hath delivered them into your hand. And it came to pass, when Joshua and the children of Israel had made an end of slaying them with a great slaughter, till they were consumed, and the rest which remained of them entered into fenced cities. So the kings, I guess the kings were cowards. They seen what was going on. They left their men. They got together, they went and hid. Of course, I can see it as, I guess in my mind, at this great battle, you had all the kings together, probably standing up on top of the mountain somewhere watching all this stuff. And when they seen the great slaughter, and they got scared, they took off. So they hid in the cave. Joshua's men found them and come and told him where they was. They sealed the cave so the kings couldn't get out, and they left a few men there, and the rest of them went after the rest of the people and continued to fight the battle with them. Then said Joshua, open the mouth of the cave and bring out those 5 kings unto me out of the cave. And they did so, and brought forth 5 kings unto him out of the cave, the king of Jerusalem, the king of Hebron, the king of Jarmuth, the king of Lachish, and the king of Eglon. And it came to pass, when they brought those kings unto Joshua, that Joshua called all the men of Israel, and said unto the captains of war which went with him, come near, put your feet upon the necks of these kings. And they came near and put their feet upon the necks of them. Why did they do that?
Symbolizes your victory. victory over them.
Yeah. I think, everything I read that, these kings are the ones that they told you what to do and when to do it. And they said that by putting them on the ground, you subdued them. There's as low as they can go right then. Huh?
They're defeated.
They're defeated. And this was kind of funny, I thought. It said, Joshua said unto them, fear not, nor be dismayed, be strong and of good courage. For thus shall the Lord do all of your enemies against it. And it seemed like when Joshua told his captains to do this, they were kind of scared. They were afraid to do this. These were kings. They were men of war. These were the kings. But Joshua told them, don't be afraid. The Lord gave them to you. So they did this. And then Joshua went. And after that, he killed each one of them. And then they hung them. Said, and afterwards Joshua smote them and slew them and hanged them on 5 trees. And they were hanging upon the trees until the evening. So they hung all day. Pretty well.
Back in Deuteronomy, they got a law that if it was worthy of death, it was to be hanged. I don't know exactly where it's at.
Yeah.
It's in Deuteronomy.
So why do you think they hung the 5 kings? They were already dead. Joshua slew them there on the spot. And then hung them in a tree. 5 different trees. To me, there were some remnants of the tribes left. And when they hung them, they could see, hey, my king's dead. We are 100% defeated. And the remnant, what was left, went back to the cities, back to their city. There weren't many, but as we're going to read here in a little bit, Joshua even went back to them cities and killed all of them. There's not going to be a one of them left when they're done. When God said, I gave you all these men, you will defeat them all. And that's just exactly what he did. He defeated them all. And not only the 5 cities that the 5 kings come from, but any other city in that region, if they come up against them in any way, at that time Joshua went ahead and slew them too. He went into the cities, took the cities, slew all the men. Verse 27, it came to pass as the time of the going down of the sun that Joshua commanded, they took them down out of the trees and cast them in the cave wherein they had been hid, and laid great stones in the cave's mouth, which remaineth until this day. And that day Joshua took Makkedah and smote it with the edge of a sword, and the king thereof he utterly destroyed them, and all the souls that were in therein, and he let none remain. And he did to the king of Makkedah as he did to the king of Jericho. So this is where they're kind of, I think, in the second day. And now they're going back and they're cleaning up what got away from them the first time. To me, God doesn't leave anything unfinished. If he starts something, he's going to finish it. Then Joshua passed from Makkedah and all Israel with him unto Libnah, and fought against Libnah. And the Lord delivered it also, and the king thereof, into the hand of Israel, and he smote it with the edge of a sword, and all the souls that were therein. He let none remain in it. But he did unto the king thereof as he did unto the king of Jericho. And Joshua passed from Libnah, and all Israel with him, unto Lachish, and he camped against this, and fought against this. And the Lord delivered Lachish into the hand of Israel, which took it on the second day, and smote it with the edge of a sword, and all the souls that were therein, according to all that he had done to Libnah. So some of these cities, Lachish being, and I may not be pronouncing this stuff right, being one of them, was one of the 5 kings that was smote. That was the remnant I talked about that got back to the city. But he went right back in there and took the city over and killed them all. Then Horam, king of Gezer, came up to help Lachish, and Joshua smote him and his people until he had left him none remaining. Killed every one of them. And from Lachish, Joshua passed into Eglon, and all Israel with him, and they camped against it and fought against it. And they took it on that day and smote it with the great edge of the sword, and all the souls that were therein, and he utterly destroyed that day according to all he had done at Lachish. And Joshua went up from Eglon, and all Israel with him, unto Hebron, and fought against it. And he took it and smote it with the edge of the sword, and the king thereof, and all the cities thereof, and all the souls that were therein, he left none remaining, according to all that he had done to Eglon, but destroyed it utterly, and all the souls that were in therein. They didn't leave, unless Charlie you think something else, or Derek, I don't think they left anybody alive when they went into these cities. Seemed like that he said all the souls were destroyed therein.
Sound like a man went.
Sound like he pretty well destroyed everything.
Yeah, but every time God told them to go out and fight and kill everybody. If they didn't, then they always had even more trouble.
Yeah. God was going to make this victory. There wasn't going to anybody come against them in that valley or that mountain again. And Joshua returned, and all Israel with him, to Berber, and fought against it. And he took it, and the king thereof, and the cities thereof, and they smote them with the edge of the sword, and utterly destroyed all the souls that were therein. But he left none remaining, as he had done to Hebron, so he did to Dapur, so he did to king thereof, as he had done also to Libnah, and to her king. So Joshua smote all the country of the hills, and of the south, and of the vale, and of the springs, and all their kings he left none remaining, but utterly destroyed all that breathed, as the Lord God Israel commanded. So everybody that breathed, he destroyed them. And Joshua smote them from Kadesh Barnea, even unto Gaza, and all the country of Goshen, even unto Gibeon. And all these kings in their land did Joshua take at one time, because the Lord God of Israel fought for Israel. And Joshua returned, and all Israel with him, with the camp to Gilgal. Now, I don't know this to be true, but I did read in a commentary that their understanding was there was no Israelites killed. But I can't find that, I don't know where they got it. Derek, have you?
Yeah, it's possible, because we consider this was intervention by God, but I would say it's unlikely, though. I would say some Israelites probably.
That's what I thought. That's just, But I think the main thing is, when God says he's going to do something, he's going to do it. And just like we talked earlier, if God said, I need you to do this, and you don't do it, God will take that away from you. He'll give it to this guy over here. All right, you won't do it? That's fine. I'll take your blessings, I'll give them to this guy.
Give somebody else.
Yeah. It happens. I think it happens more than we want to admit it happens. So, to me, the title of this lesson would have been, and I should have said it, Overcoming Opposition. So if you don't, hopefully you get a little bit out of this. I know it's a long chapter. We kind of went through some of it quick. But overcoming opposition, we've got, devil works on us a lot. You know, and there's several ways, and everybody's unique. So, you know, it could be, you know, and I got a couple things wrote down here. Deception. He targets our mind a lot of times. Evil thoughts. Or, you know, he could say, you know, Charlie got a new car, you know. And I thought, why did Charlie get a new car? Why can't I have a new car, you know? And, you know, if you take stuff like that and you dwell on it, it will eat you alive. You know, it will. It'll eat you alive. It'll draw you away from God. It does. You know, when somebody gets something, and I just mentioned a car or whatever, but, you know, we should be happy for them, you know? A lot of times we'll see, a whole story. My son used to race motorcycles. I raced a little bit. So we'd go to a race. A friend of ours there, he'd come in, big box van. Had 2 motorcycles. He already had a backup. Plumb full of tools, you name it, he had it. Anything. And I thought, man, that would really be nice to have all that kind of stuff. Well, it wasn't probably 4 or 5 months later. Here they had come in and took everything he had. The reason he got all that stuff was he had financed everything he could. He maxed every credit card out he had, and he couldn't make a payment on it. So a lot of times, you know, we look at somebody and think, I'd like to have that. But boy, a lot of times we don't want that headache, you know. I think God keeps us from that a lot of times. That's one of them things that he goes before us and he fights the battle for us, you know. That's the way I've always been. If I go to buy something, I said, Lord, if it's meant for me to have it, just pray that it works out. If not, I don't want it. So that's one thing, you know. One of the things was disobedient. He attacks our wills a lot of time. We mentioned that earlier. We don't want to be disobedient. Lord gives you something to do, tells you something, wants you to do something, do it. Trust me, when Jamie asked me to do this, I did not want to do this at all. But I'll tell you what, I've kind of enjoyed it this morning. Maybe you guys didn't get much out of it, but I did. But we got to be obedient to what he says.
One thing about standing up there, you learn as much up there as what you're trying to teach.
Yeah, you do.
I mean, we call all the digging into the stuff and trying to dig it out. You really learn a bunch from just trying to prepare to teach. You know,
and that's one thing we do. I think all of us do, and I know I'm bad about it, is and I know Rita does it every morning I get up, she's reading the Bible. Try to read a chapter, at least a chapter a day. You know, and a lot of times you just read through it. But sometimes I think we need to read that chapter for 2 or 3 days, because you'll read it, and all of a sudden something will jump out at you. You know, something a little bit different. And then, I guess the last thing I had wrote down was despair. You know, he'll attack our heart, emotions, and stuff like that. We need to turn everything over to God. And you know what time it is. Any questions? Katie, got nothing to say this morning? I don't know about that.
good lesson. You know, the Lord's fighting our battle with us.
He's always going to fight our battles. We just got to let him do it for us. You know, if he tells us to go here, go there. He's already went there before us. It's scary, but he's always there. All right, that's all I have this morning.